look, I have to say, no, I'm not going to just say yes. I'm not going to say no, and I didn't last time either.
The president has always said he'll see what happens and make a determination in the aftermath. It's the same thing he said last November. He wants a free election, a fair election, and he wants confidence in the results of the election.
Let's speak to Rina Shah, political advisor, also the founder of Republican Women for Biden. She joins us now from Beckley, West Virginia. Rina, great to see you. First of all, I have to ask you about this group you've started, Republican Women for Biden. My production team and me were looking at this title that you've given us, and we're thinking, how does that work? What is that?
Well, I must say, I'm on the board of directors of Republican Women for Progress nowadays, and that organization in its first iteration was Republican Women for Hillary. So there is an appetite of Republican women, whether you look at young or old, who believe that this president is not for them and plan to vote against him in November. I am one of those people. I've been one of his most vocal critics. I was the first elected delegate in the country to speak out against then candidate Trump in 2016, and I suffered the consequences of that. I saw the party was following him, and I cautioned that this man is not a Republican. He does not care about the values of the party, and he's simply using the party for his own political gain.
Interesting. So it was already 2016. So is that before the election of that year that you decided that you could not support, what, candidate Trump at that time? Why?
Indeed, I was elected as a Republican delegate to the Republican National Convention, and those are on micro levels. I was elected in Washington, D.C., where I was a member of the Executive Council of the District of Columbia's Republican Party. And so I was going to the convention to be one of the delegates who would elect the nominee, and he was already the presumptive nominee because of how he had done in the contests. And so I knew that conventions in this modern era are just a formality. And I was a Rubio delegate, and on the second ballot, I could have voted for John Kasich, which I had planned to do. But party leaders did not like what I had to say about the president on Fox News. I cautioned against his temperament. I said I did not believe his policies to be that matched with ours. Fiscal conservatism is paramount to women like myself. We care about a strong economy, of course. And right now, we hear Republican women across the country who do support the president say, well, the economy's great. This is not because of anything this president has done. He inherited this economy from President Obama. These are Obama-era policies. And we need to go out there and we need to speak truth to power.
Okay, let's talk about the reason we actually got you onto the program. But it was really interesting to hear Republican Women for Biden and how you have come about that kind of way of thinking. So Bernie Sanders, here's some quotes. He says Trump is, here's the quote, using his lies and misinformation to sow confusion and chaos in the election process and undermine American democracy. Bernie goes on to say Trump, quote again, does not intend to accept the results of the election. This is not just a constitutional crisis. This is a threat to everything this country stands for. Do you really think that Trump would not accept the result if it doesn't go his way?
Look, he's been laying the groundwork for not accepting the election results for months to come. He is, in many ways, a brilliant strategist in that way. He knows that if what seems to be, the polls are telling us, will be a very close election result, it will take many weeks to determine who has won the presidency because we have the Electoral College here. And the Electoral College complicates things. As we know, Hillary Clinton in 2016 won the popular vote. However, the Electoral College vote went to President Trump, and that is why he's the president. So what we know now is that it could take many weeks. And in those many weeks between Election Day in November and Inauguration Day, the Constitution does lay out what to do in these scenarios. And in the introduction, you mentioned, or you played the clip rather, of the president saying that Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, could step in, and that would be her role. Look, the reality is we have never heard a president speak like this in the modern American era. I consider myself a self-taught expert on the American presidency. Out of interest, I have studied a great many presidents, and in the modern era, we have just never seen a challenge to what could be a peaceful transition of power. And that is the hallmark of American democracy. So I'm very concerned here. And like I said, I'm a lifelong conservative. I've always voted with the Republican Party until this year. This is the first year I voted for a Democrat. I am very, very concerned, and I do agree with Bernie Sanders. That is something I never thought I'd say.
Tell me, what bothers you more? What troubles you more? Possible problems with the counting process or the language that Trump is using when he says things like, the only way I'm going to lose this election is if it's fixed? I mean, one thing is about the counting. The other thing is appealing maybe to the more angrier nature of some of his supporters.
Well, there's some facts here, and the president refuses to acknowledge those facts. And so he gaslights the American public regularly from his bully pulpit. We must recognize that. Number one being that his base is shrinking. His base of supporters has shrunk since they elected him in 2016. So that's one thing he's been very worried about. And in fact, a lot of how he operates nowadays is from that place of worry and from truly hesitation about how he's going to capture more hearts and minds in this time, especially given this pandemic and how his administration has handled it on our shores. That's number one. But secondly, we ought to look at the fact that Senator Mitch McConnell, who is a leader in the Senate, a Republican, never moved to do what I think would have been a very patriotic act. And that was to secure our elections from foreign interference. That is the number one thing I am most worried about. Since 2016, since the meddling of Russia in our elections, there have never been measures taken by our federal level officials. Of course, in certain states, yes, but by federal officials, where I believe this should have been handled, there have not been steps taken to ensure that our elections are secure and safe from foreign interference. And this president, when he was a candidate, his famous words were, "Russia, if you can hear me," and that was in reference to Hillary Clinton's emails. So he was welcoming foreign interference, and I know he's welcoming that again. He's got to. He knows that he has an advantage if there is meddling.
Rina, thank you so much for joining us on the News Hour. Take care.